Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A good friend of mine, Sameh, shared a very interesting use case. That is when we create a record and we have a field, let's say the account name. When someone enters ABC, we need it to automatically convert to be capital A dot capital B dot capital C dot. So we need to capitalize every letter and then add a dot after that. And if there is a space in between, if there is a space in between, then we don't want a dot after a space. We only need the dot after the characters. So if I create something and I call it new home, then there is a space in between. We need it to be, there is a dot after every character, but if there is a space, we need just the space without a dot, and then we continue with the same pattern. So let's look at first how it is currently built, but let's discuss the concept first. So what we are going to do with the flow is that here's the original name, the name that's inserted by the user. And what we will do is we will take the first character and then we will capitalize it. Then we will add a dot to it. And then we will have a text variable called new name. This new name is empty because we will be structuring the name all again. So we will, from the original name, we take the first character, capitalize it, add a dot to it, and then take this value and add it to new name. Repeat it with the second character and add it. Repeat it with the third character and add it. And then repeat it with the fourth character. And in this case, the system will detect that the fourth character is a space. So we need the decision element to check if this is a space, to skip this space, or just add it as a space without a dot, and then continue moving forward. So here, let's skip the decision element for a second. The first thing here is that so this is the new name, and we are adding a formula called letter to it. What this formula is doing, it's taking the record name, it is capitalizing it using a function upper, and then I'm using another function called mid to return a specific character in a string. In this case, I'm using a counter. This one defaults to value 1. I need the first character, and how many characters do I need? I need only 1. And then we are adding a dot to it, concatenating with an and. So this function, what this formula does is that it takes the first character, and it uppercases it and adds a dot. I'm using a counter here so that we start with number 1, and then we will use an assignment to add a number. We'll add 1. We'll add 1 for every iteration in the loop. We will add another one, so that next time this formula runs, it takes the second character, and then next time it takes the third character, and so on. So the counter is here every time we're adding 1 to this character. So these are like the two main elements in this flow. First, we're adding. First, the formula is uppercasing, adding a dot, adding it to the new name. We are counting, adding 1, and then we are repeating this process to add the following character, and so on. So this is what we are repeating. Now the other pieces we have here, if there is a space, so if the letter, the formula is returning space and then dot, so there is a space here and then dot, in that case, only take the space. So there's a space here, only take the space without taking the dot. So this part here is for the purpose of only addressing the space issue. And then here we need to end the flow. When do we need to end the flow? When the number of characters reaches the same number of characters as the original name. So I'm counting the characters of the original name with a len function, and then we are comparing this number of characters the original number of characters with the counter that's counting, taking the first character, second character, and so on. As soon as this counter reaches the original number of characters, then the flow should end. And then since this is a fast field update, I'm using only one assignment called update name, record account name to be the new name, and then the name will be saved as such. Now let's go ahead and build that together from scratch. So here's a new flow. And we need this flow to run when a new account is created or updated. And this is going to be fast field updates. The reason we are choosing this is like before, when the user clicks save, before the record is actually committed to the database, it will make those changes. Now let's build the concept first, and then we add the enhancements to it. First thing is that um, we need a variable called new name, and that's a text variable. So new name. So this is going to be our new name. Now, what do I need to do with this new name? First, we need to add the first character to it. So I need to get the first character from the name. So I'll use a formula to get that first character. And then let's name it character. And that's a text. Now, there are a couple of functions that are used to return text from a string, like mid or left. If I use left, if you notice, it would return the specified number of characters from the start of a text string. So the second attribute here is number of characters. So it's going to, at the beginning, and it will count. If you specify I need two, then it will count one, two, and then it will return these two. But in our case, sometimes we will need to skip the first one. So we don't need left. Instead, we need mid. What mid does is that we have three attributes here. From which text we need to extract this, and from which characters now it will start counting. So the first, the second, at which point do you need to start taking characters, and how many characters do you need? So if we have like 10 characters, I need to start at number 5, and I need to take only 2. So it's going to take 6 and 7, or maybe 5 and 6. I'm not sure. I think that's 5 and 6. So it will start at the number that we specify here, and then it will take how many characters that we specify here. In our case, we need to take the record name, so the record name, the account name, but just we need to also uppercase this record name. So let's uppercase it in the same formula. So here's the uppercase, and I'll just take the name and I will put it in here. So the function upper, and then we just need to specify which text we are uppercasing. And then where do we need to start? Initially, when I build this for the first time, I would think, okay, I need to start at the first character, and then I need to count only one character. So it's going to return the first one, but then you will, as we build it, like the first time I saved it as this, and then I realized in a second, like a minute later, that we actually need to make some changes to, like now if we are at the second letter, what should happen? So we will need to actually make this a variable instead, because with every iteration, this is not just the first character. With every iteration, it's going to be the second, the third, and the fourth, and so on. So this needs to be a variable instead. So I'll create a new variable. I can't create from here. I'll just save it for a second, get back to it. Let's create a number variable, and we'll name it counter, and that's a number. And I needed to start with the default value of 1, because when the formula runs, I needed to return the first character, or start at the first character. Now back to the formula, character. here instead of 1, I needed to start at the uh, counter that we just specified. And since it is the default value is 1, then the first time this formula runs, this is going to be 1 as well. Now that we have the first character or the character, we are ready to add this character to new name. So I'll use an assignment, add character to a new. So new name, here it is, and then the operator add, and then character. So we added the character, the first character that has been uppercased with a dot, and we added it to new name. And then we need to now change this counter. We are going to loop eventually. So next time we loop, we need this counter to add 1. So I'm going to use another assignment to. Let's actually use the same assignment for one purpose. If we have the counter now, I will add 1 to it. Now we need to loop. So if I in order to loop, I need to take a connect element and then make it loop between two elements. But because I already added the counter inside this one, I can't do that. That's why I would use another assignment so that I can loop between the two assignments instead. You see, if I click here, there is no connect element because there is only one element in the canvas. So I'll just create another assignment and we'll say count. It's the same thing. I'll just go ahead and delete it in a second. So counter, add 1, and then from here I will delete it from here. So that's the same thing. It's just into assignments for the purpose of displaying this connect to element. Now I'll just connect this to this, and what the flow is doing now, it is just repeating this process, uppercasing, adding a dot, adding it to the new name, and then doing the same thing for the second character, doing the same thing for the third character, and so on. Now this flow would run forever. It will keep doing that forever. So we need to stop it. When do we need to stop it? When the number of characters equals, when the number in the counter, that's the one that's adding, when it's equal to the number of characters that were originally inserted by the user. To do that, first we need to count the number of characters that were initially inserted. So I'll use a variable to do that. Initial number of characters. And that's a number, and that would be a formula, not a variable. Initial number of characters, that's a number, and that would be record name. From the record name, what do we need to do with it? We need to count. In order to count it, we use the function len, and just put the name in here. So that's the text string, and it is counting it. Now that we have this number of characters and we have the counter, we need to compare the two using a decision element. So reached initial number of characters, yes and no. So I would usually make this a question, and the two options, the two outcomes are yes and no as much as possible. Here what we're doing is we are comparing the counter to the initial number of characters. The initial number of characters is the one that was inserted by the user, and then we are counting each character from the new name. And as soon as we reach this, we need to end. So as soon as we reach it, we need to end. But if we have not reached that number of characters, then we need to repeat this process. Excuse me. Then we need to repeat this process until we reach that number of characters. Now, one additional thing we need to do is if there is a space. So if there is a space, we need to if there is a space, we don't need to add a dot to it. We just need to add the space without the dot. So first, we need to check if that's the case. Now I'm going to add a basically like after this. So this is the first. Let's say it's ABC. So A added a dot, capitalized A dot, and then we're done with A dot, and then now we are going back to here, and then now we are looking at B. And if this is a space, we are looking at space. And then I'll use a decision element to check if character. Now, as soon as I call character, which is the formula, then it automatically takes the character and adds a dot. So if this is B, it's going to be B dot. If this is space, then this is going to be space dot. So I want to check, is this a space dot? And again, I will just use yes, I'll add a 0 here for the API name. And then no. So if the character is space dot, so space dot, because the formula would calculate first, because I called it, and then it will make this filter criteria. It will check this filter criteria. So the formula took the space and it added a dot to it. So I am checking the result of this formula. Is there a dot after a space or not? So if there is a dot after a space, then I need to take the space only. I don't need to take the dot. So I'll just copy this assignment here and paste it here. And this one, we need to only add a space. We don't need to add character with dot. Add space only to new name. So this is new name, and we are adding a space. And then we need this. Just cut it from here and I'll add it here. Now we lost the loop connections. I'll just do it again. But now we don't need to loop at this point. We need to loop at the decision element, because with every iteration, we need to check if this is a space or not. Now, the last thing that we need to do is, now that we have the new name, items, letter characters are capitalized, spaces are ignored. Now we're ready to specify or update the name with the new name. Since we are using a fast field update, we don't need an update element. We just need an assignment. And we'll call it update account record name equals new name. We don't need an update element, because when we click save, when we create a new record and we click save, this process is actually done before the record is actually created in the database. So it's going to change the value before it commits it to the database, so there is no need for an update element. I'll save that. Let's now deactivate the one that was built initially. Activate the new one. Let's do a quick debug of any account. Let's take one that has a long name. This, for example. So first assignment, it capitalized the first letter. Second assignment, it capitalized the second letter. Now the dot is missing. The dot is missing. Let's go back to the formula, the character formula, and we did not add the dot. I totally forgot. To do that, I'll concatenate this with a dot, saving as a new version. Now, after I activated it, I would have to save it as a new version in order to, then I will activate the new version. Activating the new version automatically deactivates the older version. Let's debug again. Looking at the first assignment, we've got the capitalized B with a dot. Second assignment, we've got the U with a dot. Now let's scroll a little bit so that we can look at the spaces here. It's a long name. Scrolling up a little bit more and looking at the add space only. So we've got a space in here, and then there is no dot. Let's go ahead and try that out by creating a new account. Super success. Automatically there is a dot after each character, and then a space doesn't have a dot after it. It's just a space. Looking good. Feel free to try this out on your own, and until next time, inshallah.